Meanwhile, Central Command confirming proxy forces have carried out their 102nd attack on U.S. troops in the Middle East since October 17th. The latest attack coming as Houthi rebels warned they could target American warships in the Red Sea if the U.S. launches strikes in Yemen. Joining me right now is Center for American Security co-chairman, Fox News contributor, and former national security advisor to Vice President Mike Pence. He is the author of War by Other Means, Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg. Lieutenant General, good to see you. Thanks very much for being here. 102 attacks on our U.S. troops, and I don't think we have responded in any way. Your reaction?
Yeah, Maria, thanks for having me. By the way, I'm coming to your house for Christmas snacks. Sounds pretty good.
Good.
Look, see what's happening in the region out there, and there's a lot of attacks, and you just showed the map of them occurring, and the comment of the Houthis attacking more shipping in the Red Sea, and then you've got Secretary Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of Defense, in a very sonorous voice talking about how important it is, how we're going to react, how we're coming up with an operation called Prosperity Guardian to protect shipping. Look, here's my concern on everything, Maria. It's an illusion of progress. It's not true what's happening. And this administration is sleepwalking through a lot of dangers that are out there. When you talk about protecting Red Sea shipping as an example, we've had a task force in place for almost 2 years now called Task Force 153 in Bahrain that is supposed to protect Red Sea shipping. They haven't done it. So what you're seeing in the region shippers voting with their fleet, meaning they're moving away. You've got Mediterranean shipping, the largest shipping line in the world, followed by Maersk, which is the second largest, and many others, basically saying we're going to stop shipping in the Red Sea and we're going to move it around the Cape of Good Hope in Africa because the dangers are too large. In America, you're just talking about it, but you're not doing anything. And look, I'm going to make a shift here. When I'm talking about an illusion of progress, this is happening all over the world, just not in the Middle East. When you look what's happening, people are forgetting about North Korea. North Korea just this last week fired for the third time this year their longest ICBM, the Hwasong-18, that can hit the United States of America. Nobody's talking about it. The administration is not talking about it. So what you're seeing in the Middle East and everywhere else, there's an illusion, and they're talking about it, but there's been no action by this administration. And my concern, what you're seeing in the Middle East, is going to continue. It's not that we don't have capacity. It's not that we don't have capability, because we do. Enormous efforts are there, but we're just not doing anything. So it's will, and we don't have the will to do it.
Right, and we don't do anything to respond to China's aggression. We're not doing anything to respond to Russia's aggression. Israeli defense forces have now released new video of the Hamas tunnels beneath Gaza's largest hospital. Hamas rejected an Israel offer to stop the fighting for 1 week in exchange for dozens of hostage releases. And also, it will not discuss releasing their captives, they claim, until a ceasefire goes into effect, Lieutenant General. So what about this Israeli war that we're seeing underway with terrorists who also are bullying this administration?
Yeah, Maria, look, you're looking at a death duel. I mean, the Israelis look at this, rightfully so, as an existential threat to the state of Israel. And Hamas is not backing off. And I talked to somebody last night who's been to the region. He's Israeli, pretty much of an expert in what's happening. And he just said there's no accommodation going forward, and there's not. And I think we in the United States, we have to accept that. We have to understand that this is a terrorist organization. What they did on 7 October was just beyond horrific. They went beyond the norms of normalcy. And you just have to support the Israelis and what they're doing. So the question is, what's the next steps out there? And we need to back off and just tell the Israelis, we understand how horrific it is, and we understand where you're going, and let them finish the job. This is not going to be easy. It's not going to be done in a week. It's not going to be done in probably a month. It's going to take a while for them to clean out Hamas. And I think what you're looking at is a total, basically, eradication of Hamas in Gaza itself. And then the question is, what's next? And this is not easy. This is why the administration needs to play a very, very active role. And I think they're a negative role right now. And what I mean by a negative role, they're talking about the Israelis, watching how you use force, the questions about how far this is going to go. Just back off. Just say to the world, we support the Israelis and what they have to do. full stop.
Well, it's an interesting point to make, because so far the Biden administration has been trying to convince the Israelis to do a ceasefire and stop retaliating. But by the way, based on what we've seen from Joe Biden and his foreign policy, he's the last guy I want to listen to in terms of the direction for Israel right now. Why is the U.S. telling Israel what to do after an unprovoked attack?
I don't know. We shouldn't be doing it. But it's a crisis for our leadership, that they don't really understand the situation, but it's compounded. And you see it globally, and that's my fear. What you're seeing is just not with Israel. What's happening in Europe with Ukraine and Russia. You're looking at the Far East with China. You're looking at North Korea. This is just, it's symbolic of the way this administration acts. So I think they just need to back off. And for us to be telling the Israelis how to fight a war on their backyard, which is an existential threat, is just flat wrong. Let them finish the job. Hamas is a terrorist organization. It killed 31 Americans on 7 October. It's got Americans that are hostages. We have no idea where they're at or what's happening to them, and we need to respond accordingly in full support of the Israelis and their actions.
Well, 10 Americans detained in Venezuela have been released in a prisoner exchange as part of a broader conversation to ease U.S. sanctions on Venezuela if Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro makes significant reforms. As part of that deal, Venezuela will return escaped convict Leonard Francis, or Fat Leonard, to U.S. custody in exchange for Maduro's close ally Alex Saab. Lieutenant General, what is your reaction to this prisoner swap?
Yeah, Maria, this is when I just want to slap my head. I mean, when you're looking at it, what they're really saying is the reason they did this was they said that Maduro, our government is saying Maduro said, well, in their 2024 elections, we're going to lighten up and make sure it's more democratic. How foolish can we be? Maduro is, in fact, an authoritarian leader. He's taken full control of the government. And we're basically backing off again. Here's a great example of, in our own hemisphere, we're backing off to somebody who's actually an authoritarian leader that has no interest at all in promoting democracy. So what happens is we release this guy that we actually picked up in Cape Verde during the Trump administration. He's the chief financier of the Maduro government, and we're releasing people, which is always good. But just the accommodation we make with these type of people, it frankly stuns me. Well,
I mean, I think, when people see America absent on the world stage when all of this is going on, it cuts against the credibility of the country. General, what do you want to see from this administration in the new year to try to gain back that credibility? I mean, the Afghanistan botched withdrawal obviously kicked off our adversaries to ramp up their aggression. We lost 13 servicemen, and it even went beyond that, given what China has done since.
Yeah, this is going to be a pretty harsh statement, but I don't think you're going to see any change at all this coming year because it's in their DNA. What I'm hoping for is a change of the U.S. government come next November. It's the only way we're going to get out of this mess that we're in, because this organization, this current administration, is really not going to be able to fulfill any hard decisions or make any hard decisions. Marie, it's in their DNA.
Yeah.
It's a DNA of non-risk. And just not taking any significant action. By the way, this is exactly what Bob Gates, the former director of the CIA, SecDef, said. Joe Biden's been wrong on nearly every national security issue in the last 40 years. It's compounded again in the last 3.
Yeah. What did Obama used to say? Leading from behind, right? We sure are behind. General, great to see you. Merry Christmas. Thanks very much for being here this morning.